Okay, we can get started, I think. Hi, I'm Stephanie Skinner from Culture Media, and welcome to Counterculture. Today's presentation, the first one since July, comes to us from Forever Cheese, and by someone who needs little introduction, Michele Buster. Although Michele doesn't need an introduction, I do want to note something that comes through in everything she does. Michele is passionate about all of her products and her producers. She finds them during her wanderings in far-flung places and brings them to us here. This is exemplary, and it shows a rare level of courage and strength. Before we get started, I want to mention a few housekeeping notes. The presentation should be in speaker view mode. If it's not, just put it into speaker view. And there is a Q&A button on either the top or the side of your screen. Please post questions and comments there. I will be reviewing them and ask Michele at the appropriate time. We will also have a Q&A at the end, I'm sure, so if you need to, hold them until then. But if we don't get to your questions today, Michele will respond to you directly afterwards. You can also use the chat function, which I will try to monitor. And it's been a long time since we Zoomed together, and even longer since we've seen each other. And Counterculture is all about participation. So please tell us what you think, tell us what you taste when you taste the cheeses and products, and tell us about your pairing suggestions, recipes, or any favorite cheese moments, etc. And of course, all questions are good questions, so ask away. So let's get started. Here's Michele.
Thank you, Stephanie. They're such nice words. I still feel like I talk to my sister when I say Stephanie, since, you know, my sister's name too. Hi, everyone. It's so great to be here, and I can't wait to the time where I can see everyone in person. But today I'm super excited to talk about some of my kids. It's always nice to show them off, and decided to bring some that I don't talk about enough. So it's hard to treat everyone fairly and give them equal love, but we'll do our best. For those of you who might not know me, I'm Michele Buster. I've been doing this for over 27 years. Holy cow and holy sheep. We source the finest cheeses and specialty foods from Italy, Spain, Portugal, and Croatia. Our badge of honor is that we know and personally work with every single one of our producers and look at it as a partnership, the same as how we approach our customers. We believe it should be a two-way street. And we love people, we love cheese, we love great things. So today I hope to share a lot with you. I will encourage you to taste the products about the time I'm talking with them so we can taste them together. We can start the presentation. Thank you. Who is Forever Cheese? We are a couple of partners, Pierluigi on the left and Michele Buster. Pierluigi's family makes full V Pecorino Romano and other sheep's milk table cheeses. And we met 30 years ago to this year. So it's a 30-year anniversary from our knowing each other. And we just hope every day of the year to bring the absolute best in not just our products, but also in our service. Next slide, please. So here are our countries there: Italy, Portugal, Spain, and Croatia. Italy because of Pierluigi's family, Spain because I wanted to share my love of Spain through amazing manchego. And that was the way I could think of starting to talk about my love story for it. Portugal because we equally loved it and nobody was really paying attention to it. And Croatia, let's be honest, from vacation, I fell in love with the Adriatic about the same time that a Croatian man said he had to show me their star, which was the cheese Paški sir. And that's how we ended up with cheese from Croatia. So the best of the best for what we have. Next slide, please. We only want to have exceptional products. We will not settle for anything less. And Each one is part of us for a different reason, whether it's for tradition, whether it's for innovation, whether it's for the relationship with the producer, whether it's something absolutely iconic to that country. And speaking of relationships, the next slide, I think, is what talks about relationships. Over 20 years with so many of our producers, Paula, who makes our Casaforcella mostardas. We've started a relationship with Cesare Casella not that long ago for his prosciutti, but we've known each other for so many years. And before that, he sold Fulvi when he worked with one of the best eyes in all of the world for specialty foods, Mr. Giorgio Onesti. And Giorgio Onesti was the first to introduce us to Sottocenere and so many of our producers. We have the Almond sisters on the left who help us bring today's dealer, as Stephanie puts it, on the Mocha Pecans. And then you have the Quattro Portoni family, who were the innovators in making the first aged buffalo milk cheeses. And we've been working with them since 2008. And this is the Rosso family. We also have over a 12-year relationship. So we're really proud of the relationship with our producers for over 23 years, as well as the people in our company. So we have people who've been with us from 2 years to 5 years to 10 to 12 to 20 and 22. So we're very fortunate. And I think the next slide shows a little bit about that. We care, cheese care is really important to us. We open the products when we come in, we spot check, we look at them. If you ever get any boxes that have a stamp on it, we want to make sure and see what's happening to them. Enrique is one of our workers who have been there for so many years. And our quality control manager down here with, again, my partner and Provolone. So all of these things make up of who we are and what we bring to you, because we can get the best thing, but if we don't do first in, first out, have an amazing clean warehouse that then can get everything out to you. Okay, true. Things might be, you might see a little less these days than you have, because shipping's difficult. Shipping is delayed. There are very little ships. There's shortages of everything. We'll get into some of that as we go on, but we have a lot of shortages. So it's a very odd time. Next slide, please. And we'll start our presentation. Next slide, please. So everyone, let's talk about Omorro. I've been on the phone with them and by emailing a lot with them these days. It is really difficult to import Portuguese cheese and make money doing it. It is so hard. These are not cheeses we can bring by boat. These are the one things that we fly in. Ever since before the pandemic, the air freight rates is highway robbery. You have to always have a certain kilo. They x-ray every box. You pay for that, in addition to paying all the duties. There is a charge at everything. They've taken away most of the larger cargo holds. So now we have to ship different days of the week. You have to lose more time. It's crazy. This, I mean, how do I tell you? I was going to the Azores. I forget which island at this point, but I always stop into stores and see what they have. And I asked this shop to give me a couple tastes. And one of them was this soft, oozy, wonderful, simple yet complex cheese. And it was Omorro. And I said, oh my God, you know, will you share the producer with me? So he wrote on a piece of cardboard and he gave me their number. And I didn't know if I could make it to the island of Faial. And I went to a couple of other islands, and then I saw that I had to go to Faial in order to fly back to the mainland. So I called them on the phone, and I got Ana Marissa, who's Rui's girlfriend, and she's one of the people who speaks English. And I explained who I was, and I asked if I could visit, and they showed up at the ferry and picked me up and were super hospitable. The amanteigado, calling it amanteigado, means buttery style cheese. And this is something that there actually isn't a written definition of what is an amanteigado cheese, because I keep bringing it up to the people in Portugal. Can we call this amanteigado? It's not made with thistle rennet. And there's no law that says you can't. And since amanteigado means buttery style, I think it's fitting. On the other hand, technically, when we think of amanteigado, we think of a sheep's milk cheese coagulated with thistle rennet for an amanteigado. So there is a bit of a question mark there, but it's kind of like uncharted territories. Next slide, please. Here's Faial. The Azores are comprised of like 9 different islands. You have San Miguel, Faial, Pico, San Jorge, Santa Maria, Terceira, Flores, and I'm missing one, I think. They're amazing. That's the same weather all year round. Never too hot, never too cold. And it's just a lovely place to be. Next slide, please. So this is some images of Faial. On the label of Omorro, it has on the left here, that's the rock of Omorro. And from most of the islands, at least in the triangle, you always see the view of the Pico volcano. And one day I'll actually make it up there, because twice I tried and twice for weather, I couldn't do it. So it's something that is always just stares at me and says, I'm waiting for you. But, and for those of you who don't know, we have a cheese that we just started bringing from the island of Pico. It is super innovative. It's a washed rind cheese called Ilha dos Mistérios. We bring in just a little bit at a time, and it's cow's milk, and it's really fun to just have. It's mild, but you know, you let it hang out a bit and it starts to really get some punk to it, and it's beautiful. So I invite you to try that too. Anyway, back to Omorro. We're going to go to the next slide. Here's Rui. This is a really teeny tiny cheese plant. Okay, Rui was really excited to show me off his new baby cow. This is a Friesen. They have a few themselves, but mainly they buy milk in the area. And we have to be very careful to program cheese with them for the summer, because otherwise it runs out, because they have a lot of tourism and they sell so much cheese on the island. So we always have to like organize and make sure that don't forget us, save us cheese. I understand your tourism there, but we're here for you all year round. And it's not just Omorro cheeses, it's so often in these islands. With Mahon, I have the same problem right now. And I got mad at him because sometimes they just make a mistake and they turn around and somebody sold more than they're supposed to. And I'm like, that has my name on it, save it. So Rui, I talk all the time with his girlfriend, because she has another job, but you know, she's like the English expert and my Portuguese isn't there. So we talk. And it's very family oriented, because it's Rui's brother Nuno, we'll see in the next slide, and his wife Marcia, who I spent time with on Terceira when I was giving a cheese conference there. We can go to the next slide, thanks. So here we go, Rui, Marcia, Nuno, and this lady who helps out sometimes, and I'm sorry, I don't know her name, but this is the Caldera family. And they're the people just making pretty much this one cheese, as you'll see. So just soft, as I said, it is animal rennet, super young, just a few days, and then they go out, but in their collection of the milk, you know, very fresh, very local, and in their recipe, I think it's just so creamy and wonderful, and has enough viscosity that it just really fills your mouth, and it's not teeny, it's not bitter, it just tastes like really great quality there. Thank you for saying love. I just kind of, in my mind, you're eating it and I'm here squeezing the cheese and just saying, wow. Let's go to the next one. We'll see how teeny tiny. I mean, it's really small. It literally is just like 2 rooms with Nuno here pouring out some of the curd. They do make requeijão, so which is their form of ricotta in addition to these cheeses. And otherwise they have this cheese, and they have 2, actually they have 3 others. They have one which they say aged, and then they have one with a garlic and one with like pimenton. One is pimenton on the outside and one is inside. But they always discourage me from offering it to anyone else. Like now. They always don't want to like overdo it for themselves, and they want to concentrate. So they really don't let me bring that one. But it's like whatever each island has, you kind of make what's iconic in what you have here. So it only makes sense that if they make this style out of cow's milk, because there really aren't sheep on Faial. When you go to the mainland, there's sheep all over it. So that's where you get the style of cheese. And when I talked about the Ilha dos Mistérios, I mean, I was brought to Terceira to do a a little bit of a pep talk to people and try and tell them what we look for in other places and try and give them some impetus to say, hey, innovate. Don't just do tradition's great. We all want tradition, but we also want innovation. So when they came out with this cheese, I was applauding them. I was like, finally, somebody came out with something new for Portugal. It's not just okay that every single town in every single province makes the same 3 cheeses, unless you have that, what it takes to make it stand out. And this is why I was so happy with Omorro. Their cheese stands out from the rest. And I take my hat off to them. Next slide, please. Oh, Omorro is good with anything. I can think of 1,000 different ways to serve it and anything, but why not with a fig and almond bite? You can't go wrong with Pajarero figs and almonds. So this is a 1 ounce snacky bar size that we do in a little display unit. So the thought process was, as you know, you do more and more cheese plates, and if you don't have the labor, you don't want to take the time, you can just grab one of these. It's already packaged and you can just throw it in with your pre-packed box, whether it's for a lunch box, whether it's for a summer picnic, whether it's for a holiday tray. It's just an easy grab and go, and it's just 2 ingredients. And you know what? Sometimes 2 ingredients costs a lot more than something with 10. I've always tried to put these in the mix with an energy bar and can't always find its space because it's a Pajarero fig. It's from Western Spain. It's costly. Almonds are costly. And so sometimes, you know, if you want something's just bottom, you know, rock bottom price, this isn't the one to do it. But it's just fresh tasting, all natural, 2 ingredients, and has such a great use for everything. And it was just thinking of a very unusual sandwich. You could take 2 of the fig bites and take some of that creamy amontillado and make yourself a little layered sandwich there and just keep going up. It would be a fun little bite to do. This is made by Payoya, our wonderful family of brothers who have been doing this for so many years with us. I think we started back in 1997. And they're the only company that I know who have a complete control of their chain. Not only are they BRC and IFS, and we're suffering from this because for 2 weeks they've been in 2-week audits and our container is being pushed off, but they have to do it. But they have started an entire warehouse to receive all of their fruit, wash it themselves, dry it themselves, and process it from A to Z. Because sometimes we would get some mold coming up later in the season on some of the figs, and it created a challenge for some retailers, and it was frustrating for all of us. And that's because the figs weren't properly dried. So now they are checking into that, and not checking into it. I just read a chat. They are taking care of the entire chain to make sure that they take care of every facet of it. And that's amazing because that is a lot to do, but they are really committed to quality, to no preservatives, and to doing the best. In this category, there are so many things where you can just do, it's like a puree of fig. You can do different types of almonds, and you know, there's all sorts of things that are, there's hand pressed versus machine pressed. And these are all things that make a big difference in your finished product. Next. I see that there's 15 chats. Are you waiting till the end, Stephanie? Or is there something that's appropriate to now?
No, there's lots of people commenting on the Omorro, which is absolutely delicious. But what I was saying, and it was sort of repeated by Erica, I think, yeah, Bongart, is that it's almost like 2 cheeses, because when it comes out and it's cold, when it's right out of the fridge, it's cold, and it actually has like a creme fraiche kind of flavor, and then as it ages, it starts to funk out. It's absolutely wonderful. So
Yay.
That's really, it's just we're all like digging the cheese. That's all.
I'm so glad to hear. And I always share, like I always tell them things. So I'll send them some pictures. Well, if Chelsea's good enough to help me remember to take pictures too. Or chats. Here we have the date coconut cake. So this is like newer to us, what we do. So maybe we don't talk about it enough, but I'm just in love with it. Actually, it's in my fridge right now. Just the layers, the look, the flavors together of the deglet nor dates and the cocoa. This is a smaller wheel than some of you might know. Most of like our bigger ones are 11 pounds. This is a 4.4 pound. So it's super easy to handle. And just you can do so many things with all of the different cheeses that we do every time we're just eating it as a snack. And I'm just crazy about the presentation of this for plates and everything else because it's just so attractive. Again, always made by the Pajarero guys, and we'll see pictures of them later, not lady. Next, please. Igor Gorgonzola with honeycomb on Earl Grey ice cream. Oh my God. Thank you.
Exactly. Didn't want to distract you with that one. Anyway.
No, I need to be distracted by that. This is fun. I mean, the interaction is fun. I wish we could all just be there talking about it at the same time, like the interaction, you feed off it and to be able to go. So it's great. Here you go, guys. It is all women. All the women always who are destemming the figs by hand, one by one by one. It happens all the time, all the time, all the time. And then this is the mold for doing the bigger fig cakes or even the 2 kilos and the dates. And every single one, they just have to destem it by hand. And there's just such a big difference in when every time that you taste this, it feels like you could have just made it in your kitchen. And for those of you who haven't heard me talk about how difficult it is to make this thing, don't think it's easy because they made me make a cake, a small one, and I was cutting them all and I was putting them in the mold, and then you put your layer of Marcona almonds, and they were like alive. They kept popping up like this, and I kept pushing them down, and they kept popping up. And then you're supposed to put a weight on it, and I gave up in the end. I was just like, no, you guys are the experts. You do it, I couldn't make it happen. So it is really quite challenging and an art to do it. In fact, there was one of our paper wrap ones. There was a lady who did it for 30 years. She was so fast, and we were really worried because she retired, and we didn't know how much longer it was going to take for us to get that product. But life continues, and we were happy that she finally worked so hard and got to rest. Next slide, please. Here we go. We have Guillermo all the way on the left. He's the soccer fanatic. And then we have Jesus, who's the youngest in the back. In the red sweater, that's Andres. That's the guy who, if I'm able to find him, I talk to him, but he wears many hats and he is so busy with the audits, with everything, with the innovation. We have some new things coming out in little round plastic containers, and we're calling them pesetas. And they're fig and almond and date and almond, and some are covered in chocolate, and they look like coins. So I wanted the peseta to stay alive. So we did that. So I do innovation with him. His brother Luis handles the quality control on the plant, and then mom and dad. And the Grandmaster Vista Reyes, we got a very big scare a few months ago when he had a stroke, and he was in the hospital. And so I was always, WhatsApping to find out how he was. And because he would go to the plant every day still. And now he's home. He's okay, but he's really not exactly the same as he was. So I'm still wishing that he gets better. And just thank you for the compliments on the Omorro. So I am very, very proud to work with this family, and we don't always get along. That's probably why we consider ourselves family too, but they make great things, and we have great ideas together. So thank you guys for all your work that you do.
Hey, Michele, before you move on, I'm sorry, one quick question about Omorro, which is actually good. Is there a special wash or something on the rind or the outside of the Omorro?
No, there isn't at all.
Okay.
So it's just simply a semi-soft cheese with that. There may be sometimes as it ages that it starts, I've noticed on a couple of them that it kind of darkens a little bit. Mm-hmm. And that simply can just be in the milk or for the time or the rind, but there isn't a wash on it. No. Okay. Next slide, please. Cacio de Roma. So went to, I was out yesterday and I had artichokes with shaved Cacio de Roma on them. And that was really exciting for me. This was one of my 2 entry cheeses into the cheese world. Before I was in cheese, I worked in sports. And when I lived in Spain, Manchego was my go-to cheese. And when I went to work in Rome for World Cup golf, and I first met Pierluigi, and I used to go to the family's restaurant, when I would go for lunch, there would always be 2 cheeses mainly that they'd serve me. And one had a black label. It was an older version of this label. And then one had a red label. The red label was Rossosini, which was a blend of 60-40 cow and sheep. And the black label was Cacio de Roma. And I always preferred Cacio de Roma because I've always been that sheep's milk girl. And the very first lesson I learned when I started to learn about cheese was that sheep's milk was my thing, because Manchego plus Cacio de Roma meant sheep's milk. So this is a semi-soft sheep's milk cheese. It's from the countryside of Rome. It's easy. It's a great entry sheep's milk. It's a great whatever, anything cheese. This was my quesadilla cheese. This is my cheese for lasagnas. This is my cheese, to tell people to shred over pasta, to shave over veggies. You can use this for anything. When I first started in the business and I would make cold calls or go see people, Bel Paese was the thing. So that was a cow's milk cheese. The Italian one didn't really come here. You didn't see much. It was different. And this was a semi-soft sheep's milk cheese. And people kept saying, but what category, what kind of cheese it is? So having that it wasn't a Manchego, or it wasn't a Parmigiano, or it wasn't a Monterey, nobody really quite got that, because it was a category. Hey, you don't have customers who came up and would say, hey, I want a semi-soft sheep's milk cheese today. So it was very difficult. If somebody came back from Italy, they'd say, hey, I'd like caciotta. And caciotta is like this umbrella word for about 26 million cheeses. They could be all sheep, cow, goat, and sheep, cow and goat, whatever it was. So this is just super fun, super value oriented. And I should say Omorro, for being a Portuguese cheese, is also very value oriented in its pricing. It's really hard to have value oriented Portuguese cheeses, but this is also a very reasonable value oriented sheep's milk cheese from let's go see the sheep. That's always, well, here we are in Lazio, countryside of Rome. And then I always like to see the sheep. Take me to the sheep. So in the countryside of Rome, there's 3 or 4 different types of sheep. There used to be mainly the Siciliana as well as the Sopravissana, but the Sopravissana are kind of going by the wayside, and the Sarda sheep, which is the same sheep from Sardinia, has becoming more and more prevalent in the countryside of Rome because they're hardy, they live well. All of these sheep graze outside and pretty much just go into to get milked, and they go inside sometimes, but they spend a lot of time outdoors. Abruzzo, they told me they had trouble with the Sarda sheep because in the area they had a lot of wolves. So they were looking to switch the type of variety to a different sheep that didn't need to be outside so much because they were losing their livestock. But the quality, a lot of farmers like the fact that the Sardinian sheep produces a lot of milk, so that helps them. There's this balance that we get between people having to make a living. So farming practices, how easy is it to take care of the animal, how much milk I can get. And then if they just worked with the ones that have a lower yield, like the Siciliana. So you do see that being balanced off for there. So this is the breeds that are both used to go into the Cacio de Roma. And for those of you who don't know the countryside of Rome, it's as equally as beautiful as being in Tuscany. So I give a tout for the upper part of Lazio whenever I can, because people don't seem to go there. And I see someone's going, and I'm super excited that you're going. And if you want to go visit Fulvi or somewhere around there, then let me know. And you can PM me and we can try and work that out for you. Be happy to. Next slide, please. Here we are pouring some curd. This is a cheese that is, young, 30, 45 days old. it is, poured curd, goes into the mold, lightly salted, and then the next day, goes in for aging. Next slide, please. Here we have it in its brine. It's just going to be in the brine. Like I said, it'll be, 4 hours, something like that, before it goes into the aging room. Next slide. And here it is, just aging. And when you see the mold forming, we love to see the mold. Before it comes to the States, it goes into the shoe shiner. There's like a little machine with big hard brushes. You go in, you go clean it up, package it, and send it out. I remember our first times, I used to put a little piece of paper in every case and say, this is an artisanal piece of cheese. Not everything's going to be exactly the same color. Maybe some will be a little higher, some lower. Please know it's artisanal. And it's not always going to be the same. There were so many interesting starts to our business all that time. And this is one of our iconic cheeses. And so hopefully you're enjoying it and see the versatility and the ease with which you can use it. Next slide, please. You have any comments, Stephanie? I got outvoted on what to call these. I wanted to call them Mocha Pecans. Now, when I do that, I know that I date myself because I was thinking of the Chaka Khan song. And, but I couldn't, I look at it and that's what I think of. So the Mocha Pecans are a labor of the Almond sisters listening to what I wanted to do, which is I wanted to create something that had coffee and chocolate because mocha is my favorite flavor. And we just talked about it and we narrowed it down to doing like walnuts or pecans. And then we decided to do pecans. And this took over 1 year to make. It was an interesting process because we first tried to do it with soluble and liquid coffee, but then the pecans didn't stay crunchy. And then it clicked. Chocolate, cocoa, ground coffee, and voila. There's no other history behind that except that. And the only sad thing is I agree with you, Stephanie. I don't bring them home very often because I know I will eat the whole thing. Exactly. And I'm like, how do I keep bringing these things that I want to eat? And then I like keep them at bay, but this is just all I wanted to say. I wanted to create something that you would not want to stop eating and that was this beautiful and that would bring a lot of joy and that you could do so much with it, where you use it on fresh cheeses or you put it on ice cream or you just sit there when you're watching your Netflix, or there's no reason at all except to just enjoy them. Yay, I'm so happy that you're enjoying them too, because it really took so much time during doing it. And I will share with Laura.
What I was going to say is one of the things that's most remarkable about these pecans too is that it's the pecans keep their pecanness, but there's this, it's almost like there's a dust of mocha that like coats your entire mouth when you eat them. And it's,
but that's what we were always trying to do is,
It's
in everything we do, like whether it's cheese or whether it's the nut, we always want the basic, the base to be what it is and not
Right.
to overpower it. And sometimes it takes really long to come out of my head, or it takes the expertise of the people that I work with to just know how to do that. So in toasting the pecan helped create that. So it's a toasted pecan and it also gives it a lightness. So it's not heavy, it's kind of like, it's like feathery light. There are some things you eat them and they're delicious, but they just kind of sit in your stomach and
Right.
these don't. So,
well,
yeah,
thank you for my new addiction. I really,
absolutely happy to share. And now I can't wait. I go to the warehouse in 2 days and I need to go get myself some more. Okay. next, they do come in both bulk and in our new mini tub size. So we have several different ways for you to get them. Next slide, please. This is Laura on the left. She's basically the chocolatier. She learned to make a long time ago when we came out with the Piedras de Luna. She had learned how to make chocolate before. And her sister Tanya. I'm proud of both of these girls. Their last name is Amor, and they really do represent love. And I look at them and I still always think of their dad, Juan, who was a good friend, like another father to me. And when he dropped dead one morning, when they walked into the plant 6 years ago, all of a sudden they went from working in the plant and being good at what they did to finding themselves the owners of a plant with another warehouse being built. And they've done great. I went over there right away and I spent a week so I could make sure that they knew what they were doing, that they had a handle on it, that I could handle it. I wanted to be support to them. And the other thing that Laura did is, it's really hard in the Marcona world to get people to do a contract. So Laura was able to negotiate contracts with growers for me to get my Marconas. And that is super hard. No one ever wanted to sign a contract before. And as long as we're here and a lot of you carry Marconas, I need to let you know that there's probably going to be only 50% of the crop coming up next year. There were some frosts and really difficult times in the summer that damaged a lot of them. There's a lot of growers who won't even plant Marconas anymore because over the years they've come up so empty-handed. And I keep being told that it's going away, it's going away. So I'm working to make that not happen and to ensure our supply, but it's hopefully I find a way around it, but I keep being told this. So if you see the prices are going to be higher as well. Well, I think the prices of everything is going to be higher when you have transport, plastic, this, that. Most of our producers are telling us they have trouble just getting, glass to package their things or cartons. It's just crazy. Anyway, these are the ladies that we have to thank for these and the Piedras de Luna and so much else. So thanks, girls. Wanted you to meet them. They're wonderful. They're really wonderful people. Next slide, please. Montealva. Now, I hope that as we taste this together, it might not be the first for you on all of this, because this to me, and I just think this is such an awesome goat cheese. I looked for a long time to get stuff from Andalucia. When I lived there wasn't much in cheese at all. It was very nondescript. And when I started looking, I didn't find anything right away. But our sherry vinegar producer, Joaquin from El Majuelo, he knew I was looking, and he happened to be working on a project with this guy named Pedro, who doesn't just make cheese and have cheese in his family, he also does forestry. So they ended up on a project together with some vines, because Joaquin also makes wine. And before I knew it, Joaquin had brought me some of this wonderful goat cheese. And this is the Montealva. They call it joven because he has a fresco and he has an aged. And the textures of this cheese, the little bit of crumbliness, the friability, it has like the flavors of lemony that you get there. The richness of the milk, which comes in the Payoya goats, just all of it. It's just, you could put it in a lineup with 10 other goat cheeses and there would not be a single one that has these characteristics. And it's just so refreshing. I find it a refreshing cheese to eat. And I love to work with, Pedro told me that, like so many others, he grew up in a family where his mom made cheese. And then, years later, he was just like looking around at what they could do. And his uncle had 450 Payoya goats. So they decided to make a small cheese plant and have his sister make cheese. At one point, his sister and his wife made the cheese until his wife went off to make the Andazul blue cheese. And then most recently, I learned that his wife is not his wife any longer, but they still have, she has the Untitled cheese plant and his sister continues to make Montealva. Let's go to the next slide, please. Here we are down here. The town is called Toritera. So it's about 1 hour from Sevilla. It's about 30-40 minutes from Jerez, and it's about 45 minutes from Cadiz. It's actually in the province of Cadiz. It's in bull country. So it was really fun. I went in the back of a pickup truck and in a bull ring one day to see how they choose bulls for the bullfights. And it was quite a fun experience. It's kind of a bit deserty, and then there's some enclaves that have just a bunch of trees and forests. So his uncle has these 450 Payoya goats, and let's go see some goats after here. This is another herd of goats that he works with so that he can have 2 separate herds, and they're obviously in a different area. They also have over 300 goats here. To me, the Payoya looks a little bit like the Pajarero goat. They're both tall animals, and they both, when they reach out on their hind legs, can reach off trees and eat the leaves. They have a very rich milk as well, and you really taste that in the cheese with the fruitiness that you get from it. The zigzag rind, I know it looks like a manchego rind, but there's so many cheeses in Spain that chose that rind because it well protects the cheese, and I think it just suits it. And as you noticed from the photo before, it can come to you with quite a bit of mold on it, but very often it's that type of mold that dissipates as soon as you just brush your hand off on the outside. And if not, I always thought it just looked beautiful with that on there. And I'm going to keep showing you guys mold, and I'm going to keep showing it and showing it and showing it so you get more and more comfortable with getting it, and that it's good, it's happy, it shows you that the cheese is happy. And I still think I have to talk about that every single day, that, you know, mold is good, mold shows health, mold shows that we're not putting the chemicals on the rind. And even though I get people to put ácidos grasos, it's called, which is a natural mold retardant, it'll still eventually grow something. So it's really hard to keep it at 0. And I'm going to take all of these great adjectives and use them with our description. So thank you for them. If there's a way to save it or take pictures, like, I love it. Let's look at the next slide. We're going to talk about native breed after that. So here's a close-up of some of these handsome goats. And what Spain has been, what's the word I'm looking, touting native breed, you know, talking about them and coming up with a way to protect and to show off when you have a native breed. And the Payoya is native to Andalucia. So each wheel has that, and we'll see it on the next screen when we go. This is the sign, 100% Payoya goat. And so that's, don't get mixed up with Payoyo and Payoya. Payoya is the breed of goat. Payoyo is a brand that somebody used to call their cheese made in Andalucia around Huelva. So I know that sometimes that's a confusion. Next slide, please. So I'm glad this is the family. Dad on the left, mom, and then Pedro in the middle next to me. This was a number of years ago. And then Pedro's younger brother. So his dad collects milk sometimes. Mom doesn't really, she'll come by, but she doesn't really work in the cheese plant anymore. And then his sister was not available on this day, but small family, really good people. And I hope I get to see them soon. I don't know if Pedro's coming to World Cheese Awards. I'm going to get to see a lot of the producers the first week of November when I go judge at the World Cheese Awards. And I'm excited to see some people, and it'll be really nice. They're taller than the La Mancha goats. They're very tall. Next slide, please. But on the Montealva, here you go again. They do start out looking like this, and he does an aged version, but he sells it faster than I can ever get it in. So what you get now is around between 60 and 75 days. And for those of you who want to give it a shot, we do a younger cheese. It's a blend of cow and goat, and it's Montealva fresco. And I do it mainly for like a food service one, but it really, once it gets in this country, it has 10 days shelf life. And it goes really fast, but it's as close as I can get to a queso fresco. I mean, it is a queso fresco, but it doesn't have a long life. So you have to like pre-order it, get it, and use it. And it's very fresh, it's very lactic, and it's super fun to use. It's my getting close to melimato, using honey with cheese, or trying to get that queso fresco here. And in the end, I can do a little better with the Doña Julia, for those of you who might have seen that, a 15-day aged goat cheese that has a bit more shelf life on it, because it's pressed and salted, whereas the Montealva fresco is not pressed or salted. It's just fresh cheese packed. And then that's why you have to use it so soon. But that's been one of the areas I really wanted to do better with that I haven't been able to. Next. How am I on time, Steph?
You got about a little over 10 minutes. And we don't want to miss the Gorgonzola.
No.
Okay.
This is iconic that I'm talking about it, because you guys, you talk about my passion and everything there, and I do. And I have a big weak spot. And this is my kryptonite, in the way that after all these years, when I first started in cheese, I didn't like goat cheese, and Drunken Goat helped bridge that gap for me to go in, so that I now do just about any type of goat cheese. But I am still not a fan of the blues. Sorry to say. However, it doesn't mean I don't get passionate about my producers or want to find them, but I can't describe them with the depth and the love as much as I can the others. But I can certainly share with you the things I love about the producers and why we work with them, and where they are. But this is still, something that I'm learning about. And I almost like the Bleu de Bouffala and the Andazul. But I do have more of a challenge in some of the others. But our choice is Igor for a number of reasons. Gorgonzola is a really difficult cheese to make. It's a very difficult cheese to keep safe. And over the years, countless producers have had difficulties in keeping their cheese free of listeria and everything else. Now, in 27 years, of hearing about it, well, I haven't sold Gorgonzola for 27, but let's say for over 20. We really haven't had a problem in this country. I do know they might have had a trouble once outside in another country, but it's really hard. So they have become the reference for this cheese in all of Italy and in so many other places, because they've just been so precise about making it. And they're still such a family company. Let's go meet some of the people here. This is Novara. You can make DOP Gorgonzola in both Piemonte and in Lombardia, but here we are in Piemonte. And I actually have to go back and visit them again. Over the years, they were like a small 1,500 square foot place when they first got started. I mean, everybody, when they were growing up, or I should say when the fourth generation was growing up, everybody made Gorgonzola in their different towns. And then their family just said, okay, we think we want to do something more. Let's go for it. And we're going to invest in it. So they had a 1,500 square foot plant. Then they added on to that. And then they added on to it. And today they have a big modern plant where it's almost all completely automated. But then what did they do? Because they did so well with the automated plant, they wanted to go back and they acquired other plants that were more artisanal in hand. So they have their extra creamy is made in a super artisan plant. The Picante of another one is made in another artisan plant. So they have different plants where they have different specialties. And it's really quite cool. Let's go to the next slide. Yay to the person who likes Cacio de Roma and who didn't like sheep in there. That's awesome. So the herds of cows in and around Piemonte are generally around 20 or 30 cows. They're not big herds. So they collect all over the area. And they have been very focused on animal welfare in making sure that they get certified animal welfare from They're producers. And I see this as more and more of a trend in Europe. I've been talking to people for Parmigiano for it. I was in Galicia for a possible new cheese that I have. They're also focusing on animal welfare, and they also on grass-fed. So these are in the cows, Friesen. There's a couple Jersey, but it's mainly Friesen that they're using here. Next slide, please.
Hey, Michelle, before we
Yes.
move on, you have a question, if you could clarify the percentage of fat difference for this Gorgonzola and cremificato.
I can't give I can look it up, but I wouldn't know that. It's more in the style of how they make it.
Mhm.
When they make cremificato, which is also extra creamy, which is also like, for example, we have the Igor brand Dolce or the Leonardi Gran Reserva Dolce. They explain to it is one is scoopable or spoonable, and the other one you can cut with a knife. So it's in their way of aging it, not that they're adding something else for the butterfat to be so different, but in just the slow aging or the salting. And I have not honestly ever asked them if they changed the salting too for the cremificato, but they explained to me more that it's just in the style. To be successful selling a cheese here in this country and to have it ship and to open it and to cut on an everyday basis, they're going to make a dolce, a soft cheese that's easy to cut with a knife. If you want to go to the next level, then you go to like the Leonardi, which is a little bit softer, but can still cut with a knife. And then the cremificato is something that has to be spooned. We're just now starting to do some half wheels for people. We've been doing quarter wheels of the extra creamier cremificato that people can order. So it's easier to open just a quarter at a time. And then we just started bringing in some halves for some people too, in that way in wood. But I don't really foresee that it's so much of a butterfat percentage, but it might be in the salting. Because when we get to Dolce versus Picante, the salting is where the main difference is between the two. You have the Dolce, which is salted for 3 days, and then hand salted, dry salt, and then kept in a warm room. And then for the Picante, it's salted for a 5-day period of time and kept in the dry room before then being aged longer. So the salt, the way the salting is a key in the process of how that final one comes out. Next slide, please. Here's in the family, and I was looking over another slide that we did. In the slide we almost used, it was Fabio, and then it was Grandpa, and Grandpa just died last year. So I was glad I got that switched out, but it was very sad because every single day and every time I ever went there, Grandpa was always there. And actually, here's Grandma in the middle. So Ivana still comes every day. There's Lara, there's Julia, who is Fabio's daughter. And I was just with her in Italy now, and she's recently just been incorporated into the company after having to do her dues on every level. And Maurizio, his brother, who's running it. So it's still pretty amazing that a company that has grown this much and to sell worldwide still keeps their roots in their family. And when I was in Italy, I went out at night with Julia and Fabio, and he brought me back home, and he didn't get home till 1:30 in the morning, but he was still getting up on, was it Sunday? It was Sunday to go to the cheese plant to do his work at 7 in the morning. And then he started sending me pictures in the afternoon of him being with his dog or with the wine. Let's see a little bit more about the cheese. And there's some salting. So here's a picture of how the plant looks in one area where it's coagulating. It's coordinated by color. So you have production, which like would be yellow, cleaning is like green, packing is blue. And this has been this way for many years. They're also a BRC facility, super organized, super interesting. And it was really weird at first to see everything just automated and on the screen. And they've been like this for a very long time. And yet still everything coming out and tasting just like it could have been from a small creamery. Here is where it's getting salted like we talked about. And then this will go, the Dolce will go on to be aged, salted for 3 days and the Picante for 5. And then next. Now we go to just some ways of serving it, 1,000 different ways of salads and risotto and pizza quattro stagioni and other things like that. You have kept me. I'm going to follow up on the salting process for the extra creamy because I want to know for myself. I mean, with the aging, the Dolce is aged 60 days and the Picante at least 90 days. We do a long age Gorgonzola sometimes, which is 120. You guys are killing me, Grey's Anatomy and McDreamy.
There's a lot of inappropriate lust going on.
I love it. No, you know, if I send this stuff to Fabio, he's just going to laugh. This Fabio Leonardi is the man of fidelity to the cheese. This is what he always says. So every time I see him, whatever it is, it's fidelity to the cheese. And yeah, I don't think we have anything else after this except for question and answer.
Yeah.
So it would be amazing in your squash soup, I think. I hear.
Do you know what, so for the Omorro, do you know how that is traditionally used in the Azores? You know, I mean, other than just simply stuffing it in your mouth. I mean, is there like, are there recipes and things like that? It's such a remarkable consistency.
I'll ask them for some traditional recipes, but usually when I go, it's like, I don't really see them serving me food, you know, filled with cheese all over the place. Not that I can think of.
So mostly that would
I'm
be
thinking
on
just
each
fish
plate.
and meat, and then you have your cheese, you know, in the beginning or in the end. I did go to one place where she used cheese, made a cheese in her ice cream. And like we're seeing here, like Gorgonzola ice cream, but I'll ask how they might use it.
I've seen Gorgonzola Dolce used almost as a dessert, in the sense that you put it on fruit bread, like a big schmear on fruit bread, which is a remarkable combination.
Well,
so I think I'm going to try that with your almond little bar. That's the fig and almond bar. Or
you could do the fig bar, the Omorro, another fig bar, and the Gorgonzola.
Yeah, again, the sandwich. You are all about the sandwiches today. I can see that.
I know why. I talked with the Korean documentary guy who's doing something called Cooking People, and he was talking about layers for like 3 hours. So we were talking about layers and sandwiches and all things like that. So I'm sure it's there. But yeah, these are just things that come spontaneously out of my, you know.
You're not
Forget it. Yes, exactly.
Well, it's they're like all of them stunning. I was amazed by the Cacio de Roma. That one to me it's like limey and I mean just delicious.
It's home for me. I mean, that one's like home. That's my beginnings. But while I have you, if I have you, I'll just share another couple of things. There's a shortage in the world, in my world of cheese, of sheep's milk, of goat's milk, specifically of Manchego sheep's milk. I think I talked about it on another counterculture that I did, that there was a shortage of aged Manchego, but there's actually a shortage of milk, period. I talked to two producers the other day. There's a bidding war for the milk. So the really big ones are, they'll offer like €1 or more to get it. And then the shepherd's just going back and forth to the highest bidder. And that's all he's going to do. One of my people lost over 200,000 liters of milk. That's a lot of milk to lose. There's only a certain part. So I'm working on it. I have ideas. I am actually hopefully going to get some meetings with some government officials. I want to try and help change some things. Not to change the sheep to make the Manchego sheep, but to try and stimulate people, incentivize them to want to be a shepherd or to give them other tools. The problem is that a lot of the cheesemakers already give the shepherds this to keep them. So they either give them health insurance or they give them, they go and they do cleaning and they do other stuff where they give them equipment. But I'm going to try and meet with some people and to make some changes, because something has to change if we want to keep growing Manchego, or you guys have to start falling in love with Zamorano, Roncal, and some of the other, amazing sheep cheeses that we have there too. but we're really at a crux at the
Mhm.
moment.
Mm.
So I have my work cut out for me.
You do. You're just the person for the job, though, in my opinion. So, yeah. So Micah has said this actually better than I think I've ever seen, which is thank you for your fidelity to the cheese. We just, all of us love it.
Thank you so much. That's such nice things to say. And it means the world to see the feedback, because really we effort work so hard, like so hard to do this. And personally, I go scouring, I do, to try and find that next thing that's not just going to be a one-off, because I don't want it to be a one-off, because it's about helping the cheesemakers too. Like, just like in the pandemic, I'd buy stuff I didn't need just to help that person because that store was open. I end up with like these shoes I didn't really ever think I was going to have, but you're talking to someone, it's their story. But it's the same thing, you know, I love it. And I want that livelihood to be preserved, or I want that tradition to be preserved. And I want to bring it and share it. And then I want to share it back with them so they can see where it becomes. So anybody send us, Chelsea, your pictures of what you do with our cheeses. I share them all the time. I WhatsApp them, I email, I text them, and people get so excited to see their products in here, and then it makes them feel better. And especially during the pandemic too, I just wrote them all letters telling them that I talk about them and their names, so that their hard work doesn't go unnoticed. You know, we all need a stimulus to keep going. So this is my way of like letting you know that we don't forget what you do, and we don't take for granted. It's just like, you know, send us. So, and I thank you to everybody here for everything that you do to support us, and for taking the time today to come and to hang out with us and to eat cheese, and to talk and to listen to stories, because it's wonderful. And I can't wait till when we can all see each other and like touch in person. So whether it's in Vegas as opposed to, I don't know, I'm not a Vegas girl, but wherever it is. So we'd love to see you. So thanks, everyone. Thank
you all. This has been, as usual, a fantastic counterculture. Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Bye.